Welcome to the unboxing video for the Gretsch Baritone, whatever it's called, Gretsch BT, some 4-digit number that doesn't fucking matter. This is a brand new guitar. This is, in fact, I think this is the first absolutely brand new guitar that I've bought in like 20 years. I bought a brand new guitar when I was a teenager, and ever since then, every guitar that I've ever purchased is a used guitar. And there were a few of these on the used market, but between shipping costs or drive time, it really didn't make a lot of sense to buy one used because it was pretty much the same price as buying a new one, or in fact, some ways more expensive. You know, if the guitar's, let's say, 600 bucks, and you find a new one, or you find a used one for, let's say, 500 bucks, but it's going to cost you, you know, $100 in gas and, you know, 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours round trip just to go get it, you might as well just buy a new one and have it sent to your house. So that's what I did. And here we are. Brand new guitar. This is the G5260 in London Grey. Now this is actually pretty different than most of the guitars that I own. I have Epiphone Les Paul, PRS Custom 24, again, kind of a Les Paul style, as well as an ESP EC1000 with the piezo system, again, a Les Paul style. Again, this is actually kind of a Les Paul shape, sort of, the single cutaway thing. The first thing I'm going to notice is the weight. The weight is really not too bad. I think just by memory, this is probably a little bit heavier than my EC1000. They're about the same weight, actually. I can't really tell any difference. This is the EC1000. This is the Gretsch, obviously. But this is a baritone, so I'm pretty interested to see what kind of shit I can come up with this one. This is a V-stop bridge. This is a 30-inch scale length mini humbuckers, which I have watched a lot of videos on this guitar, and a lot of folk were who are into metal were a little bit disappointed at the prospect of having the mini humbuckers because you can't just easily swap them out, and they are low output pickup compared to, you know, your high output, you know, EMGs and other things like that, Seymour Duncans and you know, more metal oriented, you know, pickup styles. I kind of thought that was a benefit. I have plenty of guitars that have high output pickups. Specifically my Epiphone Les Paul has Seymour Duncan destroyers or fucking invaders or whatever the fuck they're called. So I was pretty excited to try something different. This is probably the most unexpected style of guitar that I've ever bought. I've always just kind of gone for stuff that, you know, kind of makes sense for me. And this one, I had my eye on one of the PRS 277 baritones. I've been looking at that for like a couple of months, and then I just started looking up other information, watching other reviews. Raymond Charles or Raymond Zander Charles. I can't fucking remember anybody's name, especially just YouTube guys. But Xander on YouTube, great guy. He did an interview on this, or did a review on this, and so did the Bun. The Bun from Baritone Obsessed. His little channel is called Baritone Obsessed. He's got a lot of baritone stuff. I think he was a little bit more impressed with the Dan Electro, but I just couldn't bring myself to go with the Dan Electro. It came down to either this or the PRS, and this was a couple of $100 cheaper than the PRS. And I already have my PRS Custom 24. The finish was very similar to what I had with, my PRS and the baritone. They look almost exactly the same. And basically all of my guitars are some shade of black and gray, quilt top, or some kind of, excuse me, I'm going to turn on the light here so you guys can maybe see this a little better. Now, fucking blue, that ain't going to help. There we go. So it's get a little bit of a glare, but this might be a little bit better of a look, I suppose. It almost has a blue-ish tint to it in that light. Let me see if I can maybe turn it around and still get a little bit of a glare, but it's pretty shiny. I don't know, I thought it was a pretty good-looking guitar. I'm going to plug it in, do some riffing, and we'll see what happens. All right, so I got this thing fully unboxed, got it tuned up. For those of you who may not be aware, the baritone guitar is tuned in the same pattern as a standard 6-string, but everything is tuned down to a 4th lower. So it's like a 7-string without the high E. So this is a B string, and then E, A, D. Instead of G, it's F sharp. Kind of that off number, fucking that weird string that is just like a regular 6-string guitar. And then up here, instead of the high E, it's a high B. So again, that's B, E, A, D, F sharp, B. But you can still do your standard chord shapes. Everything just sounds lower. So this is like your, regular fucking E minor kind of chord, but I guess it would be a B minor in the E position or whatever the fuck they call it. This shape, open, 2 on the A fret, or 2 on the A string, 2 on the D string. In this case, it's not an A or a D string, but you get the fucking picture. You see what I'm trying to say? It's that same shape. You can do your A chord shape, all the same shit that you have on a regular guitar. I started out as a bass player, so this is actually the first time I've ever played an electric baritone. May not be the first time, but it's the first time I've ever sat down and really played one. I've probably picked one up before. I know that I've picked up an acoustic baritone. Last year I went into a local guitar shop and there was a baritone acoustic by Guild, which I immediately fell in love with. I just had already bought
a different acoustic guitar like not even a month earlier, so I wasn't really in the position to buy another guitar at that moment. And I went back later to try it and see if I had fallen in love with it again, but unfortunately they had sold it, and that store has not carried one. I have gone to probably 10 to 12 different guitar stores in that last year looking for anybody who might have an acoustic baritone in stock, and I have found none. And unfortunately, I just have not taken the leap of faith and bought that guitar yet. But I really wanted to try an electric, and again, I looked and looked and looked, and I just could not find any. So I decided to order this one. It was $600 on Musician's Friend. They had a 10% off deal for the, I don't know, weekend, I don't know, fucking some kind of 10% off deal. So that brought it down to $530, and then with tax it was like $575. So sub 600 for a guitar, you know, baritone guitar with fret, neck binding. I like these inlays. You know, they're nothing too fancy or whatever, but I kind of like the look of this guitar. It's different. It's just different. I've never owned a Gretsch. I've played them before, but I've never like really been into Gretsch guitars. So I thought I'd give this a shot. Now, I'm not like a lot of other people where like I'll pick up a guitar and I'll either immediately hate it or I immediately fall in love. Like, yeah, there's been a couple of guitars out there where my first instinct is like, oh wow, I'm surprised. But usually that's because it's a cheap guitar and I'm surprised at how well it plays. Like, you know, you go to a pawn shop and you pick up the $75 no-name piece of shit guitar and then you play it and you're like, why does this guitar play so much, you know, why is it batting so high above its pay scale, I guess. So I'm not like immediately in love with this guitar, but I could see myself getting really used to it. What I'm noticing is that the string spacing is there's like a nice distance between the strings, more so than a regular 6-string guitar, or at least it feels that way. But the tension is gnarly. I don't have the world's largest, beefiest fucking hands. You know, they're not small or anything like that. They're just not huge fucking hands. And I would imagine that if you have larger hands, it would be much easier to play something like this as far as the tension goes. But then you might be back in that situation where the fatness of your fingers is getting in the way of the string spacing. But as you can tell, sounds pretty good. Now I just have this going straight into my old Black Star TVP 100. It's a 100 watt head coming through Hughes & Kettner 412 cabinet. There's a little bit of delay and reverb on this thing right now. I tried it going straight dry and it sounded really dry. I was like, whoa, I need a little bit of delay and reverb on this thing to kind of it's almost like lubrication to ease into this thing a little bit. You know, just kind of ran a couple of little scales just to see, you know, how I like it. Now, because it's a baritone, basically like all the real benefit is down here at these low notes. But there is some pretty large frets up here and you got some pretty good fret access. So it's nice. Like I said, I'm not like immediately in love with this guitar, but I can certainly see, you know, getting really used to it. I actually had the same problem with my EC1000. I bought that guitar online. It came to my house, and for the first month, I was like, man, did I fuck up? Did I make a mistake? I really wanted that guitar, and I saw it online, and when I got it in my hands, it just didn't feel right because I was so used to playing on my PRS and my Epiphone Les Paul. But, you know, I kind of eased into it, and I learned to kind of connect with the guitar, and I love that guitar now. I still like my PRS more, but I also like my EC1000. So I could see the same thing happening with this if I give it enough time. I probably will keep this just because it's like a good songwriting tool. It helps you get out of ruts. Like if you're just tired of playing the same old shit or getting the same kinds of sounds out of your regular guitar, having a baritone will kind of inspire you to come up with different ideas. Stuff that you might not come up with on a bass guitar. I had a friend of mine online who was like, why don't you just play a bass? I don't see why you would need, and he's a bit of a naysayer, and I was like, well, dude, they're an entirely different kind of instrument. So don't let anybody tell you, well, you could just play bass or you could just tune down, you could just go to a 7-string. There's a difference between the baritones and a 7-string guitar. Obviously, a 7-string has a much wider neck. And I think a lot of those things really do matter. Like when you're playing, the symmetry of having 6 strings versus having 7 strings, and the neck width, and just all those things combined, it gives a different spirit to the way that the guitar communicates through you. Now, again, I've never really sat here and played a baritone. Like right now, this is the most I've ever played one. So I'm not like doing anything super cool, just kind of getting used to it, getting my fingers on it, running the scales. Like I said, I noticed that the tension on the strings is significantly more than what you would have on a regular 6-string guitar, and obviously that's because these are much thicker strings. This, I'm not sure what the gauge is. It's probably 72 or 69 or something like that, right? But it's basically like the G string on a bass is kind of the lowest thing there, and then this would be like your low E string on a regular guitar, maybe slightly thicker, or if you play a heavy gauge string, this is kind of like your normal thing, right? So what I do like about this is that you can still get your normal 6-string guitar lines out of this, because this is E and A, right? This is your E power chord. No different than just having a regular 6-string guitar, but you do have your lower amount here. So, you know, if you wanted to, you could play, you know, E standard tunes. Basically like you're playing on the A string on a regular guitar. I will say, I don't think this guitar would be ideal in the hands of somebody who really wants to shred. You probably could if you really, you know, gave it your all and really tried to shred on this guitar. You very well could, but I don't think it's the right tool for that. Now, this whole time I have been on the neck pickup on the clean channel. And I kind of think it's the best. You know, when I was playing around getting it tuned up, I tried putting it on the bridge position, and that sounds good. Here it is in the middle. I like that. It's got a lot of body, it's got a lot of character. Going back to the neck. It's pretty good. And then here's your now to me, that's not ideal for clean. Sounds okay, but I like the more subdued vibe that you get out of the other two pickups. Right? But of course, if you're going to go into more high gain distorted sounds, you're going to want to switch down to that bridge pickup. So let me show you that real quick. I'll just switch over to you know, a more high gain kind of sound. So it sounds pretty good. Again, I haven't played too much on this, so forgive a little bit of sloppy, basic type playing. I'm not really trying to show you the extent of my abilities here. I'm just kind of riffing out, coming up with some basic shit just because it's a brand new guitar, and you know, this isn't a tutorial of sorts. So it's pretty thick. I can kind of hear what the other YouTubers were saying about having the low output of the pickup. There's definitely there's some kind of something missing from the thickness, but you could probably EQ that out. I haven't really done any EQing. Basically, like my amp settings right now, I have the bass at the 12 o'clock, the middle at the 12 o'clock, and the treble over there at 3 o'clock. So that's probably not exactly like ideal for this guitar. I just wanted to throw something kind of balanced, but with enough high end, because it is a baritone guitar. There's going to be a lot of low end, so I wanted to boost that treble up a little bit. I'm sure if you put like an overdrive pedal or a treble booster on this thing, it's going to totally change the dynamics. And of course, if you decide to drop already, I feel like I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with this guitar, and I could very easily see coming up with some super gnarly, heavy ass fucking riffs from this thing, which does not look like a metal guitar at all, but it does. You know what I'm saying? It as much as people say it doesn't look like a metal guitar, yeah, it's not a BC Rich. It doesn't have sharp, pointy angles. There is a certain sort of classiness to this kind of guitar, but I wouldn't say it looks any less metal than a fucking Les Paul. I mean, look at this is my Epiphone Les Paul. It's very much a, you know, kind of a Tool Adam Jones kind of looking finish. This is the Les Paul Custom Pro, you know, and yeah, there's some definite differences. But overall, you know, if you're up there shredding with this fucking thing or just laying it down thick, fucking making some heavy tunes, nobody's gonna give a shit that it looks slightly grandpa guitar or like a rockabilly guitar. And I think that's one cool thing about it, is that it does have a little bit more of there's like something unexpected about it. So anyway, I'm gonna fucking keep jamming on this thing. I just got it. I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to keep this guitar. I may end up returning it. I may end up getting that PRS after all. I may end up deciding that baritone isn't really my thing. But for right now, I'm pretty fucking stoked on the decision to get it. I will say one more thing I have noticed. It's probably just because of the tension of the strings themselves, that the tuning pegs are a little bit difficult to turn, like more so than I would have expected. Now, I don't know if they just need a little bit of lubrication or if they're just like that because of the overall tension of these strings. I never heard anybody say anything about the overall tension of the tuning pegs, so I think it's probably just me coming across something that I've never come across before. Anyway, hope you like the video. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, leave a comment or whatever. I'd be happy to, respond any way that I can. In the meantime, thanks for checking it out. Have a good time jamming. See you next time. Later.